Welcome back, everyone. One thing I wanted to do when I first started this channel was I wanted to teach beginners how to get better pictures. I wanted to work with amateurs and I wanted to work with pros. And the one thing I haven't done a very good job of so far is working with beginners. So today's video is going to be just for you guys that are just getting started. You just picked up a camera. You're just wanting to learn how to do it. So let's get started. By the end of this video, if you go through the steps that I'm going to be telling you about, in about 2 weeks, you'll be amazed. Your pictures will be probably 10 times better than they are right now. But you need to follow these instructions. So, you can go online on YouTube and you can find 1,000 different people that are teaching you how to take basic pictures. And this one will probably be a little bit different from them. When I did this, I sat down and I thought to myself, okay, knowing what I know now, how would I teach me, or how would I want to be taught when I was first learning? So I kind of put it together how I think I would have wanted to have been taught that would have helped me the fastest. And the people that helped me shoot pictures were very good at what they were doing. And this is a little different, so I'm going to give you my way of doing it. So, hey guys, I just want to take this second of your time. If you guys would please hit like and subscribe, it would go a long ways toward helping our channel and help us keep making these videos. Thank you. Some people may not like it, but it's the way I think would be best. So everybody learns a little bit different, so this will be good for me, so hopefully it'll be good for you too. So there's a few things in photography you need to know. There's the exposure triangle. Now what that consists of, and I won't go too deep into it, is it consists of your ISO, which is in the 80s we would have called it film speed because you had the boxes as 100, 200, or 400. But ISO in modern cameras now, you just dial in the ISO, and that's how sensitive your sensor is to light. 100 usually is about as low as it'll go, so it's less sensitive, but it's less sensitive. You get not necessarily a sharper picture, but you don't get grain and you don't get noise. If you go upwards, depending on what kind of camera you have, you get really high in your ISO, you're going to get grain or noise. People call it different things, and you don't want that. The other thing is shutter speed. Shutter speed, for the most part, it's not the only thing that it does, but for now, shutter speed basically just controls action, stop action. It can cause movement or you can freeze things with your shutter speed. And then you have your aperture. Now this confuses more people than most of the other stuff does, the aperture. Inside your camera, there are blades inside your lens. Some lenses are 2.8, some are 1.8, some are 4. It just depends. Now the lower the number, when you focus on a subject, the lower the number, behind them is going to be more of a blur. You've seen the pictures where there's a bride and behind her is just totally blown out, blurry, just a big smear. And that is called bokeh or depth of field. And you get that by setting your aperture. Now what happens when you go to take a picture, the first thing is you set your ISO and then your shutter, you push your shutter, and it can be anywhere, if you're hand holding, you can go as low as 1/60th of a second. Or some cameras will go up to 1/8,000th of a second, and others will go down to what's called bulb mode, and you can just push the button and it'll stay open until you tell it to turn off. But for this, just for the explanation, I'm not saying you have to learn this at the moment. I'm just trying to explain to you what happens with the camera. You set your ISO, let's say you're outside and it's sunny, so you set it to 100. Well, then you've got your shutter speed. So we're going to say it's at 1/60. So we push the button, shutter fires, and what happens with your aperture are there blades in here. Now, if you're wide open at like 2.8, you're going to get a big gigantic hole in that lens. It's going to be all the way open so the light gets through it. And if you go down to like f22, which is a higher number, but it lets in less light, you're just going to get a tiny hole on the lens. So your shutter determines how long light comes through that hole. And then your ISO determines how sensitive it is. Now, I just wanted to explain that. You don't have to fully understand that right now. Maybe familiarize yourself with those terms. And let's say I've got one of my kids playing outside and they're being still and they're posing for a shot. And I want that nice little blurry background behind them. But I don't know a lot about the camera. Well, if you're shooting Canon, you can go to AV mode, which stands for Aperture Priority. You get to set your aperture. So turn it as low as it'll go. If it goes to 2.8, go to 2.8. If it goes to 1.8, go to 1.8. Whatever the lowest number is, and all lenses go different, so it just depends on which lens you've got. A lot of kit lenses won't go below 3.5 or f4. Better lenses will go down to 2.8, 1.8. But the lower it goes, the more blurry you're going to get in the background. So if you're just learning, set it on aperture priority. Get your subject in focus, the camera will set the ISO, and it will set the shutter speed. That way you're going to get a nice blurry background behind your subjects. Okay? Now, it takes away some of the creativity, but if you're just learning, we really just need to learn the basics first before we try to get too creative. So just know If you want a picture of a still image and you want it to be blurry behind that image, set your aperture as low as it'll go. Now, the other version, let's say your kids are outside playing and they're running around and playing football or whatever. Well, if there's a lot of action going on, a lot of moving, and you're trying to get them to, you want them to be stopped in the picture, you don't want everybody to be blurry, then you need to go to what's called shutter priority. That, you set your shutter speed. Now, your shutter speed, remember, is how long light comes through the hole. Well, if you leave it open very long and something's moving, you're going to get movement. So you're going to have your shutter, if somebody's running like that, at probably about 1/500th of a second. That means that this is going to open and close your aperture in 1/500th of a second. So it will stop action. So go to shutter priority mode, which on Canon is called TV for some reason, I don't know, but they call it TV. That means shutter priority mode. Set it at 1/500. Your camera will set your ISO and it will set your aperture. And you're good to go. You're not going to get the perfect picture, but you're going to get a good picture. And if they're still blurry at 1/500, all you have to do is go up to 1/1000 or go up to 1/2000. However fast you have to go, the camera will keep adjusting things for you. Again, you're not going to be able to get too terribly creative doing this, but you will be able to get good shots. Now, where I think you can really learn from this, determine which one of those two you want to do. So it's coming up on Christmas time and people are going to be opening presents, and let's say you don't have a flash because the flash is a whole different ball of wax when you put it on the camera. But let's say you just want some good pictures and you just want pictures of people opening presents for Christmas time. Go set your camera on shutter priority. Set it about 1/60th of a second if you've got a 50mm lens on there. And then let your camera pick your ISO and your aperture. And the reason I say go with shutter priority is because if you go with aperture priority, it may drop your shutter down too low and you may get blurry pictures. So when you're inside like that, the main thing is you don't want blurry pictures. So set your shutter speed at 1/60th of a second. Let the camera set the ISO. It may have to set it higher. You might get a little grain depending on what camera you got. Some of the newer cameras will go, doesn't matter, you know, I can go about 12,400 on my Canon R6 and barely get any grain at all. Some cameras that are from like 2004, like the Canon 30D, you're going to get grain at about 400. So just kind of depends on where you are, but a grainy picture that looks good is better than a clear picture that's blurry. You know, clear picture that's blurry, that makes sense. But anyway, you know what I mean. You don't want your pictures to be blurry. So, but where I really want you to learn is after each photo session. Take your first photo session, look at your prints on your computer, or if you're getting them printed somewhere, sit down and look at the prints. But look at them and think, okay, how can I improve on this next time I grab my camera? Well, if you were shooting pictures of your kids running around outside and you were shooting at, say, 1/250th of a second, and you got just a little bit of blur, maybe they're stopped, but their shoes are a little blurry. Next time you go out there, turn your shutter speed up a little bit more. Go from 250 to 1/500th. That look. Now, if you're looking at pictures and you're saying, okay, well, I've got my son here, picture where he was posing, and it's pretty blurry, but it's not that blurry. And I want a little more blurry background. Not that your son is blurry, but behind him, your depth of field wasn't quite as blurry as you wanted. Certain lenses, you may not be able to get a lot of blur if they only go down to like f4. But you can move in and out from your subject, and that will help you with the background blur. Like the closer you get to your subject at your lower f-stop, you're going to get more of a blur than if you're 10 feet further back. I don't want to confuse you too much there, but just remember that. So sit down each time and think, okay, these are the pictures I got. They look pretty good. How can I make them look better next time? Well, let's say change your angle. Let's say you were shooting your son's picture and you like it, but there happened to be a dumpster in the background. Well, you don't want that. So move your angle. Move to the right, move to the left, shoot, and then you might have just all trees behind you. Well, that's going to look a lot better. So changing your angle really helps. Now, another thing you can do is get a tripod. Now, I don't like shooting with tripods because I like to move fast, but there are sometimes that you have to have a tripod. Let's say you've got a new car and the sun's setting, because new cars washed at sunset always look better than they do any other time. You can set your camera on your tripod. You can set your shutter speed at 1/60th of a second. You can set your aperture, go on aperture priority, set it to about 2.8 if it goes to 2.8. Be a little bit of ways back from the car, so most of the car will be in focus. The camera may drop your shutter speed to 1/10th of a second, but that's okay because you're on a tripod. If your camera's sitting on a tripod and you just barely touch the button, don't push it hard, you'll make it shake. Just barely touch it. Some people even set a self-timer where you change it to like 2 seconds. You push the button and it counts 2 seconds, then it takes the picture. That'll take away any camera shake that you're getting from pushing the button. But by setting your camera on a tripod, your shutter speed can go down to 1/10 of a second, go to 2 seconds if you want. You're not going to get any blur because it's sitting on a tripod. So that is another way that you can improve your images. But sit down after each time you've done pictures and just think, what's one thing I could do better next time to make these look better than they look now? Don't try to do 5 different things. Just do one thing at a time. So if you shoot pictures every day for 2 weeks, and every day you're improving one thing, at the end of 2 weeks, you've fixed about 14 things that wasn't fixed in the first set. Now you may not be that far off, but the small things you can do, you know, I was talking about changing your angle. You can also get up higher to shoot. You can get down lower to shoot. Perspective is amazing. If you're laying on the ground, I shoot a lot of models laying just flat on the ground. I have the camera on the ground, and I have my screen up so I can see it. And this is the ground I'm looking right here. Changes the whole perspective. If you can get up high and shoot down low, that changes the whole perspective. So there's a lot you can do to make your pictures look better. Do not be afraid to ask questions, but make sure you ask the right people. Don't just go on some forums. If you saw the video I did the other day about the answers on some of the forums, a lot of people giving answers are not correct. So make sure you're talking to somebody that can give you a correct answer. If you have any questions about your pictures, or if you can email me one of your pictures and say, what's happening here, I can help you with that. But just take your camera. Don't be afraid. You know, it's all digital. You're not having to pay for film. So just go out and learn. You know, try Shutter Priority, try Aperture Priority. And once you get those down, and once you look at them and you're improving each day for about 2 weeks, we'll jump from there. In about 2 weeks, I'll come on with another video and we'll put a flash on the camera and we'll change things there. And it'll be easier. It'll be something else for you to learn, but it will improve your pictures even more drastically. But take those 2 weeks, get better every day. Find something in the picture you don't like, correct it the next day. You can do it. I'm here to help you. And if we're helping you guys out, hit subscribe. And if you have any questions, just email me down at the bottom or send me a picture and I'll take a look at it and tell you what's happening, and tell you what I think might make it look better. All right. You guys don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks.